The small town of Oak Ridge, Michigan, had never seen a funeral quite like Sarah Mitchell's. As rain poured down on the cemetery that April morning, two identical 9-year-old girls stood holding hands beside the casket, their matching black dresses, soaked at the hem. Just 20 feet away, partially hidden behind an oak tree, stood a man nobody recognized. Nobody except Sarah's elderly mother, who gasped when she saw him. Before we dive into this story that will change everything you thought, you knew about family, loss, and redemption, tell me, have you ever discovered a truth that rewrote your entire past in a single moment? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn rain beat steadily against the windows of Miss Abernathy's 4th grade classroom at Oak Ridge Elementary. Inside, warm yellow light created a cocoon of safety as 23 children bent diligently over their math worksheets. All except for Lily Mitchell, who stared out the window, her pencil untouched on her desk. "Lily?" Miss Abernathy's voice was gentle but firm. "Are you with us today?" Lily turned, her freckled face showing the faintest hint of embarrassment. "Yes, Miss Abernathy." "Sorry." From 3 desks away, an identical freckled face looked up with concern. Emma Mitchell, Lily's twin, had already completed half her worksheet. Though identical in appearance, same auburn hair falling in natural waves to their shoulders, same hazel eyes that shifted between green and gold depending on the light, the twins had always been opposites in temperament. 5 more minutes, then we'll review together," Miss Abernathy announced, her gaze lingering sympathetically on Lily before moving on. Everyone in Oak Ridge knew the Mitchell twins and their story. Their mother Sarah, who ran the town's only bookstore, had raised them alone since birth, with no father in the picture. Sarah never discussed him, and in a town of just over 5,000 people, where everyone knew everyone else's business, this silence had created a mystery that people respected but never stopped wondering about. 3 rows back, Mason Reynolds, the class clown, leaned forward and whispered to Lily, "Did you forget how to do fractions again, Space Cadet?" Emma turned, fixing him with a glare that could wilt flowers. "Shut up, Mason." Her whisper was fierce, protective. "Miss Mitchell," Miss Abernathy called out, having caught the exchange, "is there something you'd like to share with the class?" "No, ma'am," Emma replied, turning back to her worksheet. When the bell rang signaling the end of the school day, the twins gathered their belongings in synchrony, a habit they'd developed over years without even realizing it. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the playground glistening under watery sunlight. "Race you to the corner?" Emma suggested, her backpack already slung over one shoulder. Lily shook her head. "Mum's going to be late today. Remember, inventory. A day at the store." Emma's face fell slightly. "Right, I forgot." Their mother's bookstore, Storybook Endings, sat on Main Street in the heart of downtown Oak Ridge. It wasn't just a business, it was the center of their small universe. Since they were toddlers, the twins had spent afternoons among the shelves, doing homework at the small table in the children's section, while their mother helped customers find their next favorite read. "We could go to the store," Lily suggested. "Help Mom with inventory," Emma brightened, "and maybe convince her to order pizza for dinner." The twins made their way down the tree-lined streets of Oak Ridge, past Victorian houses with wraparound porches, the post office where Mr. Watson always saved lollipops for them, and finally to the town square, dominated by a gazebo that hosted summer concerts and winter holiday celebrations. Storybook Endings occupied a narrow storefront with large bay windows, currently displaying a Halloween-themed arrangement of spooky middle-grade novels and classic horror for adults. A bell chimed softly as the twins pushed open the door. The familiar scent of paper, coffee, and the lavender hand cream their mother always used enveloping them. "Mom," Emma called out, dropping her backpack behind the counter where they weren't supposed to leave their things, but always did anyway. No answer came. From the rows of bookshelves or the small office in the back, Lily frowned. Maybe she's in the storage room. They found their mother in the small back room that served as both storage and office, sitting motionless at the desk. She was staring at an open letter, her face pale, one hand pressed against her mouth. She didn't look up when they entered. "Mum." Lily's voice was small, suddenly afraid. "Are you okay?" Sarah Mitchell startled, looking up at her daughters with eyes that seemed to be seeing something far away. At 35, she still possessed the kind of beauty that turned heads, high cheekbones, expressive eyes, and a graceful bearing that seemed at odds with the casual jeans and sweater she wore for work at the bookstore. "Girls," she said, quickly folding the letter and slipping it into her desk drawer. "I didn't hear you come in." "Are you sick?" Emma asked bluntly, always the more direct of the twins. Sarah forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "No, sweetheart, just tired. Inventory is taking longer than I expected." She stood up, smoothing her sweater with hands that trembled slightly. "How was school today?" The twins exchanged a glance, their silent communication honed by 9 years of shared existence. Something was wrong, and they both knew it, but they also knew their mother well enough to recognize when she wouldn't be forthcoming. "Mason Reynolds is still a jerk," Emma reported, dropping into the spare chair, "and Miss Abernathy gave us extra math homework because Jordan and Tyler wouldn't stop talking during the lesson." "Unfair," Lily added, though her eyes remained fixed on her mother's face, searching for clues. Sarah nodded, her attention clearly elsewhere. "Why don't you two start on that homework? I need to finish up a few things, then we can head home." As their mother returned to the main part of the store, Lily turned to Emma. "Something's really wrong." Emma nodded grimly. "That letter. Did you see how she looked at it?" "Maybe it's bills," Lily suggested. They knew money was sometimes tight. At the bookstore, especially since the big chain bookstore had opened in the neighboring town. Emma shook her head. "It's something else." She looked scared. The twins had been too young to remember the last time their mother had looked that frightened. It had been nearly 5 years ago when Sarah had discovered a small lump in her breast that turned out to be benign. The twins had been oblivious to her terror then, but now at 9 they were keenly attuned to the emotional weather of their small family. Later that evening, in their cozy bungalow on Maple Street, Sarah moved around the kitchen with distracted efficiency, preparing a simple dinner of pasta and salad. The twins sat at the kitchen table, allegedly doing homework, but actually watching their mother with concern. "Mom," Lily finally ventured, "is there something you're not telling us?" Sarah paused, wooden spoon in hand, and turned to look at her daughters. For a moment, it seemed she might actually share whatever burden she was carrying. Then she smiled. That same forced smile from the bookstore, and shook her head. "Nothing for you to worry about, sweetie, just grown-up stuff." Emma, less willing to accept deflection, pressed further. "But you're upset. We can tell." Sarah's facade cracked slightly. She set down the spoon and leaned against the counter, suddenly looking exhausted. "I received some unexpected news today. I'm still processing it myself. When I figure things out, we'll talk about it, I promise." The twins knew that was the most they would get for now. That night, after their mother thought they were asleep, the twins crept out of their shared bedroom and sat at the top of the stairs, listening to the muffled sound of their mother's voice. She was on the phone in the kitchen, speaking in the hushed, intense tones adults use when discussing serious matters. "After all this time," they heard her say, "I don't know what to do, Marie. The girls don't know anything about him. No, I never thought he'd actually... Yes, I'm sure it's him. The letter mentioned specific things only he would know." Emma and Lily exchanged wide-eyed glances in the darkness of the stairwell. "Him?" Emma mouthed silently. Lily felt her heart racing. There was only one Him that would cause this kind of reaction in their mother, the father they had never known, the man whose existence was marked only by his absence, a blank space in their family photos and history. "I have to protect them." Sarah's voice drifted up from the kitchen. "I've spent 9 years building this life for us. What if he wants to be part of their lives now? What right does he have after all this time?" The twins held hands tightly, their identical hearts pounding in sync as they realized their world was about to change forever. The mysterious father they had stopped asking about years ago, when they realized how much the questions hurt their mother, was suddenly real, suddenly present in their lives through whatever that letter contained. What they couldn't possibly know, as they sat there in the dimness of the stairwell, was how little time remained before everything they thought they knew about their family would be irrevocably altered. Not by a letter, but by a tragedy no one saw coming. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. 3 weeks after the mysterious letter arrived, Sarah Mitchell's persistent cough worsened. What had begun as an apparent seasonal cold lingered, deepening into something that woke her, and often the twins, in the middle of the night, with violent coughing fits. "You need to see Dr. Patterson," insisted Marie Gardner, Sarah's best friend and the owner of the flower shop next door to Storybook Endings. She leaned against the bookstore counter one Tuesday afternoon, frowning as Sarah suppressed another cough. "That doesn't sound right, Sarah." "I don't have time," Sarah replied, restocking the new releases display. "The Fall Reading Festival is in 2 weeks, and I'm already behind on ordering." The twins, working on a school project at their usual table, exchanged glances. They had been trying to convince their mother to see a doctor for days. "Mom," Emma called over, her voice carrying the same insistence as Marie's. "Just go. We can watch the store." Sarah laughed, then winced as the laugh triggered another coughing spell. "You're 9, sweetheart." "I'll stay with them," Marie offered. "Go, now. I'm not taking no for an answer." Eventually, Sarah relented, but only after making Marie promise to call her if even a single customer had a special order question. That night, the twins waited at the top of the stairs again, listening as their mother made another late-night phone call. Her voice sounded different, frightened in a new way. "Need more tests," they heard her say. "But the X-ray showed something." "I know, Marie. I know how serious it could be." The following days brought more doctor's appointments and more hushed phone conversations. Sarah brushed off the twins' questions with vague reassurances about just some tests and nothing to worry about yet. But the shadows under her eyes deepened, and sometimes they caught her staring at them when she thought they weren't looking, her expression a mixture of love and something that looked terrifyingly like goodbye. One evening, as October turned the trees along their street to brilliant reds and oranges, Sarah called the twins into the living room. She sat them down on the sofa, kneeling in front of them, so they were eye to eye. Her expression was calm, but both girls recognized the tension in her shoulders, the way she clasped her hands to keep them steady. "I need to tell you something important," she began, her voice gentle but serious. "I've been seeing doctors about my cough, and they found something in my lungs that shouldn't be there." "Like pneumonia?" Lily asked hopefully. Sarah shook her head. "It's more serious than that. It's called cancer, and it's—" "We know what cancer is," Emma interrupted, her voice tight. "Mrs. Wilson had breast cancer last year." "That's right." Sarah nodded. "Mine is in my lungs, and the doctors just learned it's also in some other places. They're going to try some medicine to help, but I need you to understand that I'm very sick." "But you'll get better," Lily said. Not a question, but a statement of what must be true. Sarah reached out to take both their hands. "I'm going to fight, as hard as I can, but this kind of cancer is very aggressive and it's already spread. The doctors are concerned because you're going to die." Emma's voice was flat, her eyes suddenly too old for her 9-year-old face. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah didn't contradict her, which was answer enough. "No!" Lily cried, launching herself into her mother's arms. "No, you can't!" Sarah held her daughter tightly, reaching out to pull Emma into the embrace as well, though Emma remained stiff, resistant. "Listen to me," Sarah said, her voice steady, despite the tears now streaming down her face. "Whatever happens, you two will be taken care of. Aunt Marie has promised to—" "I don't want Aunt Marie," Lily sobbed. "I want you." "And you have me," Sarah assured her, "right now and for as long as possible. We're going to make the most of every single day, okay? And I need you both to be brave, braver than you should ever have to be at your age." Emma finally broke, her composure crumbling as she collapsed into her mother's arms beside her sister. The three of them clung to each other as the autumn sunset painted the living room walls in hues of gold and amber, a beautiful backdrop to the shattering of their world. The next 2 months passed in a blur of hospital visits, new routines, and increasingly frequent stays with Aunt Marie, who wasn't actually their aunt, but had been Sarah's best friend since college. Sarah started chemotherapy, which made her hair fall out in clumps until she decided to shave it all off, letting the twins help with the electric razor in a tear-filled session that somehow ended with all three of them laughing as they gave Sarah outlandish partial hairstyles before the final shave. "I looked like a punk rocker," Sarah had declared, striking a pose with a half-shaved head, "or a very confused monk." The twins tried to be helpful, taking over chores without being asked, bringing Sarah ginger tea when the nausea from treatment hit, reading to her when she was too tired to lift a book herself. But they were still children, and sometimes the unfairness of it all would overcome them. Lily would dissolve into tears at unexpected moments, in the middle of dinner, while brushing her teeth, once even during a math test at school. Emma, meanwhile, developed a hard shell of anger, snapping at classmates and getting into a fight with Mason Reynolds when he made a thoughtless comment about her mother's appearance. Through it all, Sarah continued to work as much as she could at the bookstore, refusing to give up the place that had been her dream since college. On good days, she would be there for a few hours, wrapped in sweaters against a chill only she could feel, helping customers find the perfect book with the same care and insight as always. "Books are magic," she told the twins one evening as they sat together in her hospital room during an overnight stay for a particularly bad reaction to treatment. "They let you live 1,000 lives, feel 1,000 feelings. When you read, you're never truly alone." The doctors continued to use words like aggressive and metastatic in hushed tones they thought the twins couldn't hear. Sarah's oncologist, Dr. Ramirez, had the grave eyes of someone delivering bad news too often. By Thanksgiving, Sarah was using a wheelchair most of the time, her once vibrant body betraying her a little more each day. But even as her physical strength waned, there was something that seemed to weigh on Sarah more heavily than her illness. Something she struggled with telling the twins. They could sense it in the way she sometimes started sentences only to stop herself, in the long pauses when she stared out windows, in the letters she wrote late at night and tucked away in her bedside drawer. It was Emma who finally confronted her one evening in early December as snowflakes drifted past the hospital window. Lily had fallen asleep in the chair beside Sarah's bed, and Marie had gone to the cafeteria for coffee. "Is it about our father?" Emma asked without preamble. "The thing you're not telling us?" Sarah's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with resignation. "How did you know?" "We heard you on the phone that night, after the letter came," Emma admitted. "And you keep writing things and hiding them. I thought they might be letters to him." Sarah reached for her daughter's hand. "You always were too perceptive for your own good," she sighed deeply. "Yes, it's about your father. His name is Daniel Carter. He's a photographer. a very good one. He travels all over the world for his work. He left us, Emma stated, her young face hardening. It's more complicated than that, Sarah said gently. He didn't know about you, about either of you. We had already broken up when I found out I was pregnant. Emma absorbed this information, her clever mind working through the implications. Why didn't you tell him? Because I was hurt and proud and scared, Sarah admitted. He'd left me to take a job overseas, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he said. I found out about the pregnancy a week later. And now? Why is he contacting you now? Sarah hesitated. He moved back to the States recently. He happened to see a photo of me, of us, in a local newspaper article about the bookstore. He recognized me and reached out. Does he know you're sick? Emma's question was direct, unflinching. Yes. I told him after my diagnosis was confirmed. Is he going to take us when you... Emma couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. He wants to meet you both, to know his daughters. I've been trying to decide what's right, what's best for you. Marie has always been my plan for after. But Daniel is your father, your blood. We don't know him, Emma said fiercely. We don't need him. Everyone needs family, Em, Sarah said softly. And he is your family, whether you want him to be or not. From the chair beside them came Lily's voice, small and wavering. Have you been talking to him all this time? Sarah and Emma turned to find Lily awake, her eyes wide with hurt at the secrets being discussed without her. Not all the time, Sarah assured her, just preparing for your futures. I hate him, Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. If he had been here, maybe you wouldn't have had to work so hard. Maybe you wouldn't have gotten sick. Sarah opened her arms, and Lily crawled into the hospital bed beside her, careful of the IV lines. That's not how cancer works, sweetheart, and your father isn't responsible for my illness. But he left you, Lily insisted. He left me, Sarah corrected gently. Not you. He never knew about you. That was my choice, my mistake perhaps. And now I have to make another choice about what happens to the two people I love most in this world when I can no longer take care of them myself. As the snow continued to fall outside, blanketing Oak Ridge in pristine white, the small family huddled together in the sterile hospital room, confronting a future none of them had ever imagined. One where the twins would finally meet the father they never knew existed under the worst possible circumstances. What none of them realized was how imminent that meeting would be. Christmas in Oak Ridge arrived with a fresh blanket of snow and twinkling lights adorning Main Street's lampposts. The town's annual holiday festival went on as it always had, but for many residents, the season was tinged with sadness as news of Sarah Mitchell's conditions spread throughout the community. Storybook endings remained open, run primarily by Marie, with help from volunteers, former English teachers, book club members, and loyal customers who couldn't bear to see Sarah's dream falter while she fought for her life. The twins spent their afternoons there as always, but now they worked alongside the volunteers, having learned more about running the store in 2 months than in all their previous years combined. "Your mum taught you well," remarked Mrs. Holloway, their mother's former English teacher who now helped with inventory on Tuesdays. "You know this store almost as well as she does." Emma, sorting through a shipment of new releases, merely nodded. Praise felt hollow in the shadow of why they were taking on these responsibilities. Lily, meanwhile, had developed the habit of taking photographs of everything. The store, their house, everyday moments that might have seemed insignificant before their mother's diagnosis. "I want to remember everything," she explained, when Emma questioned her obsession with the disposable cameras Sarah had bought her. "Every single thing, exactly how it is now." Sarah had been moved to a hospice facility 3 days before Christmas, when the hospital could no longer justify keeping her admitted. The twins visited every day, driven by Marie or other town volunteers. Today, December 28th, they arrived, with handmade cards and small gifts purchased with their own carefully saved allowance. Sarah was asleep when they entered her room, her breathing shallow and raspy. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished against the white sheets, her body surrendering a little more each day, despite her fierce will. The twins quietly arranged their gifts on her bedside table and settled into the chairs beside her bed, patient in the way only children facing tragedy can be. When Sarah woke an hour later, her smile at seeing them still transformed her face, momentarily masking the ravages of her disease. "My beautiful girls," she whispered, her voice weakened but filled with love. "What treasures have you brought me today?" Lily presented her card first, a carefully drawn picture of their family, Sarah, Lily and Emma, standing in front of storybook. Endings, surrounded by books with wings that soared around them like butterflies. "Because books are magic," Lily explained, "like you always say." Sarah traced the drawing with trembling fingers. "It's perfect, Lil. Absolutely perfect." Emma's gift was a small leather-bound journal. "For your stories," she said simply, "the ones you used to make up for us at bedtime. I thought maybe you could write them down, for later." The unspoken, "when you're gone," hung in the air between them. Sarah accepted the journal, meeting Emma's eyes with a look of understanding. Of the twins, Emma had always been the one who faced difficult truths head-on. "Thank you, Em. That's very thoughtful." After the gifts had been properly admired, Sarah asked the girls to fetch a box from her small closet. It was medium-sized, wrapped in simple brown paper and tied with twine. "There are some things I need to share with you," Sarah said as the twins placed the box on her bed. "Things about your father, and about me. Things you should know." The twins exchanged glances, their hearts suddenly racing. Since the revelation about their father weeks ago, Sarah had shared only minimal details. His name, his profession, the fact that he was currently in Kenya on assignment, but would return to the States soon. "Inside this box are pieces of my life. From before you were born," Sarah continued, untying the twine with fingers that shook slightly. "A life I've rarely talked about, but one you deserve to know." She removed the brown paper to reveal a wooden box with intricate carvings along its edges. As she lifted the lid, the twins leaned forward, curious despite their apprehension. The first item Sarah removed was a small velvet pouch. From it, she extracted a delicate silver bracelet adorned with charms, a tiny camera, a book, a compass, a heart. "Your father gave me this on our first anniversary," she said quietly. "He added a charm every few months, things that represented our journey together." Lily reached out tentatively, touching the camera charm with one finger. "Because he's a photographer." Sarah nodded. "Daniel has an extraordinary talent for capturing moments that tell stories. His photographs don't just show what something looks like, they show how it feels." Next came a stack of magazine clippings. National Geographic, Time, prestigious photography journals, all featuring photo credits for Daniel Carter. Sarah spread them on the bed, revealing stunning images of wildlife, indigenous communities, natural disasters, and moments of human connection across cultures. "Your father's work has taken him to over 40 countries," Sarah explained. "His photographs have won international awards. He's documented wars, environmental crises, cultural celebrations. If he's so great, why did he leave you?" Emma asked, her voice hard with the defensiveness she'd developed since learning about their father. Sarah sighed. "That's a fair question. Daniel received an offer to be National Geographic's lead photographer for a 3-year project documenting climate change impacts across Asia. It was his dream assignment, the kind of opportunity photographers wait their entire careers for." "And you weren't part of that dream," Emma concluded. "I was given a choice," Sarah corrected gently. I could go with him, living nomadically, or we could try a long-distance relationship for 3 years, but I had just been offered the chance to buy this small bookstore in my hometown from its retiring owner. It had been my dream since childhood to own storybook endings. So you both chose your dreams over each other, Lily observed quietly. Sarah nodded, her eyes distant with memory. We were young, 25, just starting our careers. We believed if our love was strong enough, we'd find our way back to each other eventually. But the distance grew. Our lives moved in different directions. She pulled out a worn envelope containing a dozen handwritten letters. These are from our first year apart. Later, emails replaced letters, and eventually, the communication dwindled to holiday greetings and the occasional update. When did you find out about us? Lily asked, her gaze fixed on the letters as if they contained answers to questions she hadn't even formed yet. 3 weeks after we said goodbye at the airport, Sarah replied. By then, Daniel was documenting monsoon flooding in remote regions of Bangladesh. I couldn't reach him for weeks, and when I finally did, she paused, swallowing hard. You decided not to tell him? Emma finished for her. Sarah nodded slowly. I told myself it was because I didn't want to disrupt his career, that I was being selfless. But truthfully, I was hurt that he'd chosen his work over us. Pride is a powerful thing, girls. Sometimes it makes us do things that seem right in the moment, but that we later regret. From deeper in the box, Sarah retrieved a small photo album. Unlike the professional photographs, these were personal snapshots. Sarah and a tall, handsome man, with the same hazel eyes as the twins, caught in various moments of their relationship. Hiking in mountains, laughing on a beach. Daniel with his arms wrapped around Sarah from behind as they stood on what appeared to be a rooftop in a foreign city. This is your father, Sarah said softly, handing the album to the twins. Lily took it eagerly, while Emma hung back, reluctant to show interest. You have his eyes, Sarah continued, both of you. And Emma, you have his determination, the way you set your mind to something and refuse to quit until you've mastered it. Lily, you have his ability to find beauty in unexpected places. Emma finally leaned forward to study the photographs, her curiosity overcoming her resistance. He looks normal, she admitted, sounding almost disappointed, as if she'd expected their absent father to appear visibly villainous. He is normal, Sarah said with a small smile. A normal, flawed, talented human being who made choices just as I did. She reached for their hands. The important thing for you to understand is that neither of you was unwanted. The circumstances were complicated, but you were never a mistake in my eyes. Does he have other kids? Lily asked suddenly. A different family? Sarah shook her head. No. As far as I know, he never married, never had other children. His life has been his work. Until now, Emma said pointedly. Sarah met her daughter's gaze with steady certainty. Daniel didn't ask to be part of your lives out of obligation, Emma. When he reached out after seeing that newspaper photo, he had no idea I was ill. He wanted to know you because you're his daughters, not because circumstances forced his hand. Emma remained skeptical, but said nothing more. Sarah reached for one final item in the box, a sealed envelope with the twins' names written on it in her elegant handwriting. This is for after, she said simply. When I'm gone, it contains things. I want you to know things perhaps I should have told you sooner. Her voice broke slightly. Things a mother hopes her daughters will remember. The twins stared at the envelope, neither willing to take it, as if accepting it would somehow hasten their mother's death. Marie will keep it safe until it's time, Sarah assured them, setting it back in the box. A nurse appeared in the doorway, signaling that visiting hours were ending soon. The twins helped Sarah return the mementos to the box, each privately committing details to memory. The charm bracelet, their father's photographs, the expression on their mother's face as she shared this hidden part of her life. "Will we meet him soon?" Lily asked as they prepared to leave. "Our father." Sarah's face reflected conflict, the desire to protect them warring with the reality that she would not be able to do so much longer. "He's flying back from Kenya as we speak," she finally admitted. "He'll be in Oak Ridge by the new year." The twins absorbed this news in characteristic fashion, Lily with wide-eyed apprehension mixed with curiosity, Emma with a tightening of her jaw and a flash of something like fear beneath her anger. As they kissed their mother goodbye, neither realized that the fragile thread holding their mother to this world was unraveling faster than anyone had predicted. The introduction Sarah had planned between her daughters and their father would happen, but not in the way she had carefully arranged. It would happen beside her casket, in the driving rain, as the twins confronted not only their grief, but the appearance of a stranger who shared their blood, a stranger who had no idea they had been watching him from the moment he arrived at the cemetery. Sarah Mitchell passed away in the early hours of January 2nd, slipping quietly from the world while the twins slept at Marie's house. When Marie woke them with red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands, the girls already knew. Some connection, some invisible thread linking them to their mother, had broken during the night, leaving a hollow emptiness that words could never adequately describe. She wasn't in pain, Marie assured them, gathering both girls into her arms as they sat on the edge of the guest bed they'd been sharing. The hospice nurse said it was peaceful in her sleep. Lily broke immediately, her small body racked with sobs that seemed too powerful for her frame. Emma remained rigid, dry-eyed, as if refusing to accept the news might somehow reverse it. "We were supposed to see her today," Emma finally said, her voice eerily calm. "She promised we could bring her the new book that came in yesterday." Marie brushed Emma's hair back from her forehead. "I know, sweetheart. She wanted that too." The following days blurred together. A surreal procession of adults handling arrangements, bringing casseroles, offering condolences with awkward pats on the shoulders and murmured platitudes about their mother being in a better place. The twins moved through it all like sleepwalkers, responding automatically when spoken to, but retreating into the private world they'd shared since birth whenever possible. They stayed with Marie, sleeping in her guest room surrounded by boxes of their belongings hastily packed from their now empty home. Neither mentioned the father who was supposedly arriving, and Marie, overwhelmed with funeral arrangements and her own grief for her best friend, didn't bring it up. The morning of the funeral dawned grey and miserable, a January day that couldn't decide between rain and snow, ultimately settling on a bone-chilling drizzle that seemed fitting for the occasion. The twins stood before the mirror in Marie's guest bathroom, dressed in identical black dresses purchased specifically for this unimaginable day. "I can't do this," Lily whispered, her fingers nervously pleating the fabric of her dress. "I can't say goodbye." Emma met her twin's eyes in the mirror. "We don't have a choice." "Do you think—" Lily hesitated. "Do you think he'll be there? Our father?" Something flickered across Emma's face. Anger, fear, uncertainty. "I don't care if he is." "I do," Lily admitted in a small voice. "I want to see him." "Why?" Emma demanded, turning to face her sister directly. "He's nobody to us. Just because he gave Mom a bracelet and took some pictures doesn't make him our dad." Lily looked down. "But he's all we have left." Emma's expression softened slightly as she took in her sister's devastation. Despite her own pain and anger, she couldn't bear to see Lily suffer. "We have each other," she said firmly. "We've always had each other. That's all we need." Lily nodded, but the doubt lingered in her eyes as they headed downstairs, where Marie waited to drive them to the church. Oak Ridge Community Church was filled beyond capacity. It seemed the entire town had turned out to honor Sarah Mitchell, whose bookstore had been a cornerstone of the community for nearly a decade. Teachers, Customers, fellow business owners, and even children the twins barely knew packed the pews, their collective grief a tangible presence. From their seats in the front row, the twins could see their mother's casket, covered in white lilies and surrounded by photographs chronicling her life. Marie had created a beautiful display, using pictures from Sarah's albums. Sarah as a smiling toddler, as a teenage bookworm, as a college graduate, and as a proud new business owner cutting the ribbon at storybook endings. Conspicuously absent were any photographs of Daniel Carter, though several pictures showed a very pregnant Sarah, her face glowing despite being alone in the images. The service began with Pastor Williams offering words of comfort that washed over the twins without penetrating their grief. Various community members spoke about Sarah's kindness, her passion for books, her dedication as a mother. Mrs. Holloway read a passage from Sarah's favorite novel, her voice breaking several times. When it was the twins' turn to speak, they approached the podium together, hands clasped tightly between them. They had prepared something jointly the night before, taking turns reading lines about their mother. But standing before the sea of tear-streaked faces, Emma suddenly froze, the carefully written notes blurring before her eyes. It was Lily who spoke first, her voice surprisingly steady. "Our mom always told us that books are magic because they let you live 1,000 lives," she began. "She gave us that magic every day, reading to us before we could even talk." Emma squeezed her sister's hand, drawing strength from the connection. "She taught us that stories matter, that they connect. People across time and space," she continued, finding her voice. "She was the best storyteller we knew. Together, alternating sentences in the seamless way only twins can manage, they painted a portrait of their mother. Her pancake-making skills, terrible. Her laugh, infectious. Her ability to find the perfect book for anyone who walked into her store. Her fierce love that made them feel safe even when life wasn't." As they finished, a movement at the back of the church caught Emma's attention. The doors had opened briefly, allowing a latecomer to slip inside. Even from a distance, even having never met him in person, Emma knew instantly who it was. The man standing hesitantly at the back of the church, still wearing what appeared to be a travel jacket slightly damp from the rain, was undeniably their father. The same hazel eyes, the same tall, lean build she had seen in the photographs. Her breath caught in her throat, and beside her, Lily followed her gaze, a small gasp escaping her lips. Marie, turning to see what had captured the twins' attention, visibly stiffened. She hadn't expected him either, it seemed. The remainder of the service passed in a blur as the twins remained hyper-aware of the man at the back of the church. He made no move to approach, standing respectfully throughout the service, his expression grave and somehow lost. Several times, Emma caught him, studying them with an intensity that made her want to hide, to shield both herself and Lily from his gaze. As the service concluded and people began moving toward the doors for the procession to the cemetery, Marie leaned down to the twins. "That's Daniel," she confirmed quietly. "Your father. He contacted me yesterday from the airport. I didn't tell you because..." She trailed off, clearly uncertain whether she'd made the right decision. "Because you didn't want to upset us more," Lily finished for her. Marie nodded. "He wanted to pay his respects, but he said he wouldn't intrude on your grief unless you wanted to meet him." "We don't," Emma said immediately, just as Lily said, "I do." The twins stared at each other, a rare moment of complete disagreement between them. "I need to know who he is," Lily insisted. "We already know who he is," Emma countered. "He's the guy who wasn't there for 9 years. Because Mom didn't tell him about us," Lily reminded her. "Remember, that's what she said." Emma's jaw set stubbornly. "That doesn't change anything." Marie looked between them, clearly torn. "We don't have to decide this right now. Let's get through the burial first, okay?" At the cemetery, the drizzle intensified, forcing mourners to huddle under black umbrellas that transformed the gathering into a flock of somber ravens. The twins stood closest to the casket, holding hands as they had throughout the entire ordeal, their free hands clutching small white roses to place on their mother's casket. From the corner of her eye, Emma could see Daniel Carter standing at a respectful distance, separate from the main group of mourners. He had no umbrella, seemingly indifferent to the rain that plastered his dark hair to his forehead and soaked the shoulders of his jacket. As Pastor Williams offered final prayers and mourners began placing flowers on the casket, Emma felt Lily's hand slip from hers. Before she could react, Lily was walking, not toward the casket, but directly toward Daniel Carter. Emma stood frozen, watching as her twin approached the stranger who was their father. Lily stopped a few feet from him, looking up with an expression that combined grief, curiosity, and an unmistakable hope that tore at Emma's heart. Daniel knelt down to Lily's level, his face a complex mixture of emotions, sorrow, uncertainty, and something that might have been wonder. They were too far away for Emma to hear what was said, but she saw Lily nod in response to something Daniel asked, then point back toward Emma. Daniel's gaze shifted, finding Emma across the rain-soaked cemetery. Their eyes locked, and for a moment everything else seemed to fade away. The funeral, the mourners, even the steady patter of rain. It was just Emma and the stranger with her eyes, engaged in a silent assessment that felt like the most important test of her young life. What broke the moment wasn't sound, but absence. The sudden hollow silence as mourners dispersed, leaving only the immediate family by the graveside. Marie appeared at Emma's side, gently touching her shoulder. "It's time to say our final goodbye, sweetheart," she murmured. Emma tore her gaze from Daniel and Lily, turning back to her mother's casket. With trembling fingers, she placed her white rose atop the gleaming wood, whispering a promise only she could hear. When she looked up again, Lily was walking back toward her, alone. Daniel remained where he had been, watching from a distance, respecting boundaries even as his presence challenged everything the twins had ever known about their family. "He wants to talk to us," Lily said quietly as she rejoined Emma. "After, if we want to." "And do you?" Emma asked, already knowing the answer. Lily nodded, her expression pleading for understanding. "Don't you want to know who we come from, who we might be?" Emma looked back at Daniel Carter, the award-winning photographer, the man who had loved their mother once, the stranger with their eyes, the man who, through either fate's cruelty or their mother's choices, was suddenly the only parent they had left. "Fine," she conceded finally. "We'll talk to him, but that doesn't mean anything changes." What Emma couldn't possibly know was how much everything was already changing, how this rain-soaked meeting at their mother's funeral was the first step on a journey that would challenge everything she thought she understood about family, forgiveness, and her own heart's capacity to heal. Marie Gardner's Victorian home on Maple Street had transformed into an impromptu reception venue following the funeral. Neighbors and friends filled the living room and kitchen, their hushed voices and occasional forced laughter creating a backdrop of awkward normalcy that felt jarringly out of place to the twins. Emma and Lily sat side by side on the window seat. In Marie's dining room, untouched plates of food balanced on their laps, watching as adults moved through the house in a choreography of grief and social obligation. No one quite knew what to say to the 9-year-old orphans, so most settled for pats on the shoulder or murmured platitudes before moving on, visibly relieved to escape the weight of their sorrow. "He's still outside," Lily whispered, peering through the lace curtains at the figure standing on the sidewalk in front of Marie's house. Daniel Carter had followed the funeral procession back from the cemetery, but hadn't entered the house with the other mourners. Instead, he remained on the sidewalk, occasionally pacing, clearly uncertain of his place in this gathering. "Why doesn't he just leave?" Emma muttered, picking at a loose thread on her black tights. "No one invited him." "Mom did," Lily countered, quietly. "That's why he came to Oakridge in the first place, remember?" Before Emma could respond, Marie approached, her face drawn with exhaustion, but her eyes alert and concerned. "Girls," she said, settling onto the window seat beside them. "Are you doing okay?" Neither twin answered directly, but Lily nodded toward the window. "He's still out there," Marie sighed, glancing out at Daniel. "Yes, I know. He's been very respectful, staying back like that. But—" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I think your mother would have wanted you to meet him. Properly, I mean." "Why now?" Emma asked, the question that had been burning inside her finally escaping. "Why not before, when Mom was still—" Her voice broke slightly. Marie put an arm around Emma's shoulders. "That's something only your father can answer, sweetheart. But if you want to talk to him, I could invite him in. Or if you'd prefer, I could ask everyone else to leave, give you some privacy." The twins exchanged glances, their silent communication flowing beneath the surface of spoken words. "Can we talk to him alone?" Lily asked finally. "Just us and him?" Marie looked surprised. "Are you sure I could stay with you?" Emma shook her head. "No, if we're going to do this, we want to hear what he has to say without anyone else there." Marie studied them both, weighing their maturity against their vulnerability. "All right," she agreed eventually. "I'll clear everyone out and ask him to come in, but I'll be just in the kitchen if you need me, okay?" As Marie began the delicate process of ushering mourners toward the door, explaining that the twins needed rest, Emma and Lily moved to the living room sofa, sitting close together as if preparing for battle. "What are we going to ask him?" Lily whispered. Emma's expression hardened. Why he never looked for Mum, why he never tried to find out if she was okay after he left. "But what if he did?" Lily challenged. "What if Mum didn't tell us everything?" Before Emma could respond, the front door opened and Daniel Carter stepped hesitantly into Marie's living room. Up close, the resemblance between him and the twins was even more striking. It wasn't just their hazel eyes, but subtle mannerisms. The way he tilted his head slightly as he studied them, the same questioning gesture Emma often made when confronted with a puzzle. "Hello?" he said simply, his voice deeper than they'd imagined, with a slight rasp that suggested he hadn't used it much recently. "I'm Daniel." He stood awkwardly by the door, clearly uncertain whether to approach. "We know who you are," Emma replied, her tone cooler than Lily's would have been. Daniel nodded, accepting the coldness as his due. "May I sit down?" he asked, gesturing to an armchair across from the sofa. Lily nodded, while Emma gave the barest shrug of acknowledgement. As Daniel settled into the chair, the twins noticed details they couldn't see from a distance: the lines around his eyes, suggesting years squinting in harsh sunlight, a small scar along his jawline. The way his hands, resting on his knees, showed calluses from equipment rather than office work. "I don't know where to start," he admitted after a moment. Of heavy silence. "Why did you leave our mum?" Emma asked directly, her young voice steady, despite the emotional weight of the question. Daniel didn't flinch from the accusation in her tone. "I took an assignment overseas, a dream job documenting climate change impacts across Asia. I asked Sarah to come with me. But she wanted to stay for the bookstore," Lily filled in, remembering their mother's explanation. Daniel nodded. "We both had dreams pulling us in different directions. We thought we could make it work long distance. But—" He trailed off, his expression clouded with regret. "Did you love her?" Lily asked, the question both simple and profound. "Yes," Daniel answered without hesitation. "Very much. I've never loved anyone the way I loved your mother." "Then why didn't you come back?" Emma challenged. Daniel's gaze dropped to his hands. "I did, eventually. But by then, it was too late. Sarah had disappeared from our shared circles. None of our mutual friends knew where she'd gone. She'd changed her email, her phone number. Because of us, Emma realized aloud. She was hiding us from you. Daniel looked up, the pain evident in his expression. I didn't know about you. I swear I didn't know Sarah was pregnant when I left. If I had, you would have what? Emma pressed, unwilling to let him off easily. I would have come back immediately, Daniel said firmly. I would have found a way to make it work, to be there for all of you. But you didn't look hard enough to find her, Emma accused. I tried, Daniel countered, but his voice held no defensiveness, only sadness. For nearly a year I searched. But Sarah, your mother, was determined not to be found. Eventually I had to accept that she had moved on with her life, that my presence wasn't wanted anymore. Lily, who had been studying him intently, spoke up. How did you find out about us? Mom said you saw a newspaper photo. Daniel nodded, reaching into his jacket pocket to retrieve a folded newspaper clipping. He smoothed it out and passed it to the twins. It showed Sarah standing proudly in front of storybook endings, with the twins, younger, maybe 6 or 7, on either side of her. This ran in a regional business feature about independent bookstores thriving despite online competition, Daniel explained. I was back in the States for an exhibition of my work. A colleague had the paper, and I just happened to glance at it. And you recognized Mom? Lily asked. Immediately, Daniel confirmed. I would have known her anywhere, even after all those years. And then I saw you two, and... He paused, emotion making his voice rough. I knew. As soon as I saw you, I knew. You were mine. You have my mother's chin. Did you know that? And my eyes, obviously. What did you do then? Emma asked, her hostility momentarily displaced by curiosity. I contacted the newspaper, got the name of the bookstore, and found Sarah's business email. I wrote to her, not knowing what to expect. I just said I'd seen the article, that I'd recognized her, and asked if we could talk. And Mom wrote back? Lily prompted. Daniel nodded. Not right away. It took nearly 3 weeks. Her reply was brief, just confirming that yes, she was the Sarah I had known, and yes, you were my daughters. She said she needed time to process my reappearance before deciding how to proceed. That's when she got the diagnosis, Emma realized, pieces falling into place. Right after she heard from you. Yes, Daniel confirmed, his eyes glistening. The next email I received, she told me she was ill, that the cancer was already advanced, that she wanted to make arrangements for your future. But you were in Kenya, Lily said, remembering what their mother had told them. I was documenting drought and famine, Daniel explained. In areas with very limited communication, Sarah's emails reached me sporadically. By the time I learned how serious her condition was, I was deep in remote territories. It took me nearly 2 weeks to get out, to make travel arrangements back to the States. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. I wanted to be here sooner. I was supposed to arrive before... His voice broke. Before she was gone. We had planned for me to meet you while Sarah was still here, to ease the transition, but my flight was delayed in Nairobi, then again in London. I landed in Boston yesterday morning and drove straight here, but I was already too late. The raw grief in his voice penetrated even Emma's defenses. For the first time she allowed herself to consider that this stranger, their father, might be suffering his own version of loss. Not the same as theirs, not the daily present suddenly vanished, but the loss of possibility, of reconciliation, of answers to questions that could now never be asked. She left you a letter, Lily said suddenly, remembering the envelope in there, Mother's wooden box. Mum left you a letter with Marie. Daniel looked startled. She did. Emma nodded reluctantly. She left letters for all of us, or for after. The simple word hung in the air between them, after Sarah, after life as they knew it, after certainty. I didn't know, Daniel said quietly. Marie hasn't mentioned it. An uncomfortable silence settled over the room, the three of them connected by grief and blood, but separated by 9 years of absence. Finally, Lily asked the question that had been haunting both twins since they'd learned of their father's existence. "Well, what happens now?" Her voice was small but steady. "Are you going to take us away?" Daniel looked genuinely surprised by the question. "I wouldn't. I mean, this is your home, your friends, your school. Everything you know is here." "But Marie can't keep us forever," Emma pointed out pragmatically. "She's not actually our aunt or anything." "No, but she was your mother's closest friend," Daniel replied. "Sarah's emails made that clear. She trusted Marie with your care. But you're our father," Lily pressed, "legally and everything." Daniel ran a hand through his still damp hair, a gesture so similar to Emma's habitual motion when stressed that Lily glanced at her twin in startled recognition. "I am," Daniel acknowledged, "and I want to be part of your lives. But I'm also a stranger to you. I can't just sweep in and uproot you after everything you've lost." For the first time since their mother's diagnosis, Emma felt a tiny crack in the wall of anger she'd built around herself. This man, their father, wasn't making demands or assumptions. He wasn't trying to claim them as possessions or pretend that 9 years of absence could be erased in a single conversation. "So, what are you saying?" Emma asked, her voice losing some of its edge. Daniel met her gaze directly. "I'm saying I want us to get to know each other. I want to earn the right to be in your lives, not demand it because of biology. I want to honor what Sarah wanted for you, which was stability and love." He gestured around Marie's home. "If that means you stay here with Marie for now, while I find a place nearby and we build a relationship gradually, then that's what we'll do." "You'd stay in Oak Ridge?" Lily asked, surprise evident in her voice. "What about your photography, your travels?" A shadow crossed Daniel's face. "Some things are more important than work," he said simply. "It took me too long to learn that lesson. I won't make the same mistake twice." Something in his words, in the quiet certainty with which he said them, finally broke through the last of Emma's resistance. The tears she had been holding back since Marie woke them with the news of their mother's death suddenly overwhelmed her. Her small body shook with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and primal. Without hesitation, Daniel moved to the sofa and knelt before her, not touching her but present, offering comfort without imposing it. "It's not fair," Emma choked, out between sobs. "It's not fair that we only got Mom, and now we don't even have her anymore." "No," Daniel agreed softly. "It's not fair at all." When Emma finally looked up at him through tear-blurred eyes, what she saw wasn't the stranger from her mother's photographs or the distant figure at the funeral, but simply a person sharing her grief, offering understanding without pretense. Hesitantly, she reached out one small hand. Daniel took it gently in his own. The first physical contact between father and daughter, a tenuous bridge across 9 years of absence. Beside them, Lily watched with tears streaming silently down her face, not just for their mother, but for all the years lost and the uncertain future that lay ahead as they began the complex process of becoming a family that had never before existed. 3 days after the funeral, Marie's dining room table had become command central for what she privately called Operation New Normal. Spread across the polished oak surface were legal documents, school registration forms, real estate listings, and Sarah's meticulous instructions for everything from the twins' medical history to how they liked their sandwiches cut. Sarah thought. "Of everything," Marie murmured, adding another folder to the organized chaos, "except how we'd all feel trying to follow her instructions while grieving her." Across the table, Daniel nodded, his eyes tired from hours of paperwork and emotional conversations. He had taken a room at Oak Ridge's only hotel, a small establishment that catered primarily to leaf peepers in autumn and skiers in winter. Each morning he arrived at Marie's house at precisely 9, spending carefully measured hours with the twins before retreating to his hotel room in the evenings. "I found a house to rent," he announced, sliding a printed listing across the table. "It's on Sycamore Street, about 6 blocks from here, close to the school and—" he hesitated, "the bookstore." The fate of storybook endings hung like a ghost over their discussions. Sarah had left the business to the twins in her will, with Marie as trustee until they came of age. The practical reality of maintaining a bookstore while raising 2 grieving children, however, remained unresolved. "It's a good location," Marie agreed, studying the rental listing. "When would you move in?" "The owner says it's available immediately. I could sign the lease tomorrow." The unspoken question lingered between them. When would the twins move in with him? Or would they? From the living room came the muted sounds of the television. The twins had developed the habit of watching nature documentaries in the afternoons, programs that, not coincidentally, often featured photography from remote locations. Neither adult commented on this newfound interest, though both recognized it for what it was, the girls' subtle way of connecting with their father's world. "I should check on them," Marie said, rising from her chair. "Actually," Daniel replied, "I was hoping I could take them out this afternoon, just for ice cream or something simple, if you think they'd be up for it." Marie studied him thoughtfully. Though initially wary of the man who had suddenly appeared in the twins' lives, she had watched his careful, patient approach over the past days with growing respect. He never pushed, never presumed, yet remained consistently present. "Ask them," she suggested. "They're old enough to decide for themselves." Daniel nodded and made his way to the living room where Emma and Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, watching footage of elephants crossing an African savanna. He recognized his own footage immediately, a documentary he'd contributed to for National Geographic 3 years earlier. "That matriarch is named Safi," he said quietly, settling onto the sofa behind them. "She led her herd through a terrible drought the year I filmed them. Smartest elephant I've ever encountered." The twins looked up, surprised by the personal connection to what they were watching. "You took these pictures?" Lily asked, clearly impressed. Daniel nodded. "I spent 6 months following this herd, documenting their migration patterns." "Were you scared?" Emma asked, her question free of the hostility that had marked her earlier interactions with him. "Sometimes," Daniel admitted. "Elephants are generally peaceful, but a mother protecting her calf can be dangerous. You have to learn to read their signals, to know when to keep your distance." As the documentary continued, Daniel found himself sharing stories behind various shots, the challenges of filming in dust storms, the patience required to earn the herd's trust, the heartbreak of watching younger elephants struggle during the drought. The twins listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking questions that revealed their quick minds and natural curiosity. When the program ended, Daniel cleared his throat. "I was wondering if you two might like to get ice cream. There's a place in town I noticed, Jenkins Creamery," Emma supplied. "We know it. Mom used to take us there after dentist appointments," Lily added, a small smile touching her lips. "At the memory. She said it defeated the purpose of clean teeth, but traditions were important." A brief shadow crossed her face at the mention of Sarah, but it passed more quickly than it might have days ago. Grief was still omnipresent, but it was beginning to find its own rhythm, allowing moments of normalcy to exist alongside it. "So, would you like to go?" Daniel asked again, careful not to press. The twins exchanged one of their silent communications before Lily nodded. "Okay." Jenkins Creamery sat on a corner of Main Street, its cheerful blue awning and hand-painted sign a fixture in Oakridge. For 3 generations, as Daniel and the twins entered, a bell chimed above the door, drawing the attention of the few afternoon customers scattered around the small tables. Whispers followed them as they approached the counter, not malicious, but the inevitable interest of a small town observing the newest chapter in a story everyone knew parts of. Daniel pretended not to notice, but the twins, accustomed to Oakridge's dynamics, shifted closer together. "Hey, Emma, Lily," greeted the teenage girl behind the counter, her smile gentle with sympathy. "The usual?" "Yes, please," Lily answered. "Strawberry for me, chocolate chip for Emma." Daniel stepped forward. "And I'll have a scoop of vanilla in a cup, please." "Just vanilla?" Emma asked, sounding almost disappointed in his conventional choice. Daniel smiled slightly. "I've eaten some strange things in my travels. Ice cream is the one place I prefer simplicity." They took their treats to a table by the window, watching as occasional pedestrians hurried past in the January chill. For a few minutes, they ate, in comfortable silence, the twins seemingly content to be out of Marie's house and engaged in something resembling normal life. "I wanted to talk to you both about something," Daniel finally said, setting his empty cup aside. "About what happens next." The twins stiffened almost imperceptibly, their synchronized reaction highlighting their connection. "As you know, I've found a house to rent here in Oak Ridge," Daniel continued carefully. "It's not far from Marie's place or your school." "Are we supposed to live there with you?" Emma asked, direct as always. Daniel shook his head. "Not unless and until you want to. I've talked with Marie and with a family lawyer. We've agreed that the best approach is to take things slowly. You'll continue staying with Marie for now, but I'll be nearby. We can spend time together, get to know each other better. Then, when you're ready, if you're ready, we can talk about other arrangements." The twins exchanged glances, processing this information. "But you're our legal guardian now, right?" Lily asked. "Mum's letter said so." "Technically, yes," Daniel acknowledged. "Your mother named me as your guardian in her will, with Marie as the alternative if I couldn't or wouldn't take on that role. But legal documents can't create relationships overnight. Those take time to build." Emma studied him with an intensity beyond her years. "What about your work? Don't you have to travel and stuff?" It was the question Daniel had been preparing. For the one that cut to the heart of the choice he'd made. The same choice he'd faced 9 years ago, with a different answer this time. "I've spoken with my agency," he said. "I'm switching to domestic assignments only for the next year at least, and I've arranged to work remotely on editing and curating my existing portfolio." He leaned forward slightly. "My work is important to me, but you two are more important. I've already missed 9 years. I won't miss any more if I can help it." "But what if you get bored here?" Lily asked, vulnerability evident beneath the question. "Oak Ridge isn't exactly exciting compared to Africa and stuff." Daniel's expression softened. "Life isn't just about excitement, Lily. It's about connection, about being where you're needed and where you belong. I belonged with your mother once, and I didn't fight hard enough to keep that connection. I won't make that mistake again." Something in his words reached Emma in a way previous conversations hadn't. "You really loved her, didn't you? Not just back then, but still." Daniel met her gaze, not hiding the grief in his eyes. "Yes, a part of me never stopped loving her, even when I thought I'd never see her again. When I found that newspaper photo, when I realized she was here all along." He paused, collecting himself. "I had so many things I wanted to tell her, apologies I wanted to make, and now I never can." For the first time, Emma recognized that their losses, while different, shared a fundamental quality. They had all lost futures with Sarah, memories that would never be made, words that would never be said, moments that had been stolen by time and circumstance and disease. "Mom kept all your letters," Emma said suddenly, "the ones from when you first went away. She showed them to us before—" She trailed off, unable to complete the sentence. Daniel looked surprised. "She kept them? All this time?" Lily nodded. "In a special box with your pictures and stuff. She said we should know where we came from." This revelation clearly affected Daniel deeply. He blinked rapidly, turning slightly toward the window to compose himself. "There's something else," Lily continued. "Mum's letter, the one she left for after. We haven't opened ours yet. Marie says we can whenever we're ready, but it feels Too final, Emma finished for her. Like once we read it, she's really gone. Daniel nodded in understanding. I haven't opened mine either, he admitted. It's sitting in my hotel room. I keep looking at it, but I haven't found the courage yet. This shared hesitation created an unexpected bond between them, a mutual recognition of how paper and ink could both preserve and finalize a connection. What if, Emma began, then stopped, uncharacteristically uncertain. What if what? Daniel prompted gently. What if we read them together, she suggested, her voice gaining strength. All three of us, when we're ready. The suggestion hung in the air, weighted with significance beyond the simple act of reading letters. It represented a choice to face their grief collectively, to allow this stranger father into the most intimate part of their mourning. Daniel understood the magnitude of what was being offered. I would be honored, he said simply. Whenever you decide it's time. As they finished their ice cream and prepared to leave, Daniel noticed a photography store across the street, its window displaying cameras and equipment. Would you like to see it? He asked the twins, nodding toward the shop. Photography is something I could teach you, if you're interested. A way to capture memories, to tell stories without words. Like you do with your pictures, Lily asked. Daniel nodded. Everyone sees the world differently. Photography lets you share your unique vision with others. As they crossed the street toward the small shop, Emma found herself studying Daniel's profile. The nose that wasn't quite like hers, the jawline that somehow was. For 9 years, half of her identity had been a blank space, an absence she'd learned not to question because it hurt her mother. Now that space had a face, a voice, a presence that was simultaneously foreign and familiar. Standing at this crossroads between grief and possibility, Emma made a decision. She would not trust blindly, that wasn't in her nature, but she would allow for the chance that this man, this father who had materialized at their mother's funeral, might be someone worth knowing. Someone who might, in time, help fill the chasm their mother's death had left behind, not as a replacement, never that, but as something new. Something that, like the photographs he took, might eventually tell a different kind of story. By early February, a tentative routine had established itself. The twins returned to school, facing the curious glances and awkward sympathy of classmates who didn't know what to say about their loss. Daniel moved into the rental house on Sycamore Street, a modest 2-story home with a yard that backed onto a small wooded area. 3 afternoons a week, the twins came to his house after school, where he taught them photography basics, cooked simple meals from recipes he'd gathered around the world, and gradually filled in the blank spaces of their shared history. On this particular Thursday afternoon, a fresh layer of snow covered Oak Ridge, transforming the town into a postcard-perfect winter scene. Daniel had set up a photography challenge for the twins, providing each with a simple digital camera and a list of subjects to capture. Something red against white, a pattern in nature, light and shadow. They had spread out through the backyard and into the edge of the woods, each twin approaching the assignment with their characteristic style, Emma methodical and precise, Lily intuitive and experimental. Daniel watched from the back porch, a mug of coffee warming his hands as he observed his daughters discovering the world through viewfinders. Daughters. The word still felt unfamiliar, precious and terrifying in equal measure. In just over a month, he had gone from a solitary existence, documenting faraway lives, to being responsible for 2 young souls, navigating unimaginable loss. I think I got a good one, Lily called, tromping through the snow to show Daniel her camera's display. The image showed a cardinal perched on a snow-laden branch, the vivid red of its feathers brilliant against the monochrome background. That's excellent, Lily, Daniel said, genuinely impressed by her composition. You've got a natural eye for contrast. Lily beamed, her cheeks flushed from the cold. Emma's trying to get a shot of ice crystals on the fence. She's been in the same spot for like 20 minutes. Daniel chuckled, recognizing his own perfectionist tendencies in Emma's approach. Sometimes the best shots take patience. Why don't you come inside and warm up? I'll make hot chocolate. In the kitchen, as Daniel heated milk on the stove, Lily settled at the counter, scrolling through her photos with critical attention. "Daniel," she asked, not looking up from the camera, "were you scared when you found out about us?" The question caught him off guard, though he'd been expecting versions of it as the twins became more comfortable with him. "Not scared exactly," he answered honestly, reaching for the cocoa powder. "Overwhelmed, definitely, amazed, and yes, nervous about whether you would want me in your lives. But not sorry," Lily pressed, finally meeting his eyes. Daniel set down the whisk he'd been using. "Not for a single second," he said firmly. "Finding out about you and Emma was like discovering a piece of myself I never knew was missing. The only sorrow I felt was for all the years I'd lost, all the moments I'd never get back." Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with his answer. "Mom kept photo albums of us. Every year on our birthday she'd take the same picture, us on the front steps of the house, holding up how old we were turning. I'd like to see those someday, if you're comfortable sharing them," Daniel said carefully. "They're in the boxes at Marie's," Lily replied. "We haven't unpacked most of Mom's things yet. It's too hard," Daniel finished for her. "I understand. There's no rush, Lily. Some things need time." The back door opened with a gust of cold air as Emma entered, shaking snow from her boots in the mudroom before joining them in the kitchen. Her cheeks were red from the cold, her expression triumphant. "I got it," she announced, holding up her camera. "The ice crystals made this amazing pattern like tiny ferns growing on the fence wire." Daniel prepared a third mug of hot chocolate as Emma showed them her photos. Her technical precision was remarkable for her age, each shot carefully composed to highlight the geometric patterns formed by frost. "These are excellent, Emma," he praised. "You've got an eye for detail that took me years to develop." Emma accepted the compliment with a nod, though Daniel noticed the slight smile she tried to suppress. Of the twins, she remained the more guarded, her acceptance of him coming in small, measured increments rather than Lily's more open approach. As they sipped their hot chocolate, the conversation drifted to school, a science project Emma was excelling at, a book report Lily was struggling to complete. "Mum usually helped with our homework," Emma said matter-of-factly, though Daniel caught the undercurrent of loss in her statement. "I'm not as good with literature as your mother was," Daniel admitted, "but I could try to help." "What's the book?" "Bridge. Unter Terabithia," Lily sighed. "I finished it, but I don't know what to write about. The ending is so sad." "Ah," Daniel nodded, understanding the challenge. The novel's themes of friendship and loss would hit particularly close to home right now. "Sometimes the books that make us feel the most are the hardest to write about. That doesn't mean they're not worth reading." Lily considered this. "Mum said books help us practice feeling big emotions safely." "Your mother was very wise," Daniel said softly. "She understood that stories can prepare us for life in ways we don't always recognize until later." A comfortable silence settled over the kitchen as they finished their hot chocolate, the twins occasionally scrolling through their photos or glancing out at the steadily falling snow. These quiet moments had become increasingly common, spaces where they existed together without the pressure of forced conversation or emotional revelations. "It's getting heavier out there," Daniel observed, eyeing the thickening snowfall. "I should probably get you back to Marie's before the roads get bad." "Actually," Emma began, exchanging a quick glance with Lily, "we were wondering if we could see your photographs. Your professional ones, I mean. You've been teaching us, but we haven't really seen much of your work, except the stuff on TV." The request warmed something in Daniel. It was the first time Emma had expressed direct interest in his career beyond polite questions. "I'd love to show you," he replied, careful not to overreact to what felt like a significant overture. I have e-portfolios in my office, and there's something else you might be interested in seeing. He led them to the small room he'd converted into a home office, where framed photographs lined the walls and neatly organized portfolios filled a bookshelf. But instead of reaching for these, Daniel opened his laptop and pulled up a folder labeled, "Simply, Sarah, your mother wasn't just the subject of my early photography," he explained as the twins gathered around his desk. "She was often my inspiration." The first image showed a much younger Sarah, maybe 22 or 23, sitting on a fire escape with a book open on her lap, completely absorbed in reading. The photograph captured her in natural light, unposed and unaware of the camera, her expression reflecting the pure joy of literary escape. "This was our first apartment in Boston," Daniel explained. "Your mother was still in graduate school, studying comparative literature. The building was terrible, noisy pipes, unreliable heat, but she said it had character." He scrolled to another image, Sarah laughing in a downpour, arms outstretched, face tilted toward the sky. This was the day she learned she'd been accepted into her PhD program. It started pouring, but she didn't care. She said the rain was washing away all her doubts. Photo after photo revealed Sarah in various settings, serious in libraries, playful at beaches, contemplative in museums. Through Daniel's lens, she appeared multidimensional in a way the twins hadn't seen in their family photos, which, largely, showed their mother as just that, a mother. "She was beautiful," Lily whispered, touching the screen gently as if she might feel her mother through the image. "She was extraordinary," Daniel corrected softly. "Brilliant, passionate about literature, stubborn as hell when she believed in something." "That didn't change," Emma said, a small smile playing at her lips. "She once got into an argument with our principal about the books they removed from the school library. She brought like 20 printouts of literary reviews to prove her point." Daniel laughed. "That sounds exactly like Sarah. She never backed down from defending books or ideas she believed in." He scrolled to a final image, Sarah standing on a bridge in what appeared to be Central Park, snowflakes catching in her hair, her expression containing a vulnerability rarely seen in the other photographs. "This was the last photo I took of her before I left for Asia," Daniel said quietly. "We'd already decided to try the long-distance relationship. I think we both knew, somewhere deep down, that we were making a choice that would change everything, but neither of us was willing to admit it." The twins studied the image intently, as if trying to read the future their mother couldn't see coming. The pregnancy she didn't yet know about, the decisions that would lead her to Oak Ridge, to raising twins alone, to creating a life that didn't include the man who had captured this moment. "Why did you keep these?" Emma asked, her question direct but not accusatory. "All these years?" Daniel considered her question carefully. "Because they were beautiful moments, regardless of what came after. Because your mother was the first person who made me understand that photography isn't just about capturing images, it's about preserving feelings." He paused. "And I suppose, if I'm being completely honest, because I never fully let go." For several minutes, the three of them sat in silence, sharing the strange intimacy of viewing a past that belonged to Daniel and Sarah, but had created Emma and Lily. Two timelines, before and after, connected by photographs and shared DNA. "We have something to show you too," Lily said finally, reaching for her backpack. "We brought it. It's Mom's letter." She extracted a cream-colored envelope, still sealed, with Daniel's name written on the front in Sarah's handwriting. Daniel stared at it, his expression a complex mixture of longing and apprehension. "Your letter to me?" Emma nodded. "We decided we're ready to read the letters together like we talked about." She pulled out two similar envelopes addressed to "My dearest Emma" and "My dearest Lily." "Are you sure?" Daniel asked, his voice gentle. "This is a big step." The twins exchanged glances, having clearly discussed this decision thoroughly between themselves. "We're sure," Emma answered for both of them. "Mom wanted us to know her truth, all of it." Daniel nodded, accepting the significance of the moment. "Where would you like to do this?" "The living room," Lily suggested. "It's cozier there." They settled on the comfortable sofa, the snow outside creating a cocoon of quiet around the house. For a moment, they all stared at their respective envelopes, each containing Sarah's final words, her attempts to reach beyond death to offer whatever closure, wisdom, or love she could provide. "Together?" Daniel suggested softly. Emma nodded, her usual boldness temporarily subdued by the weight of the moment. "On three, 1, 2, 3. 3 envelopes opened simultaneously, 3 letters unfolded with trembling fingers, and in the quiet of the snowy afternoon, Sarah's voice reached out to them one last time, building an unexpected bridge between past and future, between loss and possibility, between 3 people who had loved her in different ways, but who now faced the challenge of creating something new from the pieces she had left behind. Spring arrived in Oakridge with a gentleness that seemed almost deliberate, as if nature understood the need for gradual transitions after harsh winters. Cherry blossoms appeared along Main Street, and the town square's gazebo received a fresh coat of white paint in preparation for the summer concert series. At Storybook Endings, change was also underway. After months of uncertainty about the bookstore's future, a decision had finally been reached. The bell above the door chimed as Daniel held it open for the twins to enter, their footsteps echoing in the familiar space that had been closed since Sarah's passing. "It feels smaller somehow," Emma observed, running her fingers along the counter where her mother had once sorted new arrivals and chatted with customers. "But it still smells the same," Lily added, closing her eyes briefly. "Like paper and coffee, and Mum's lavender hand cream." Daniel watched as the twins moved through the store with the confidence of those who had grown up in the space, straightening books that had remained untouched for months, checking the children's corner where they had spent countless hours doing homework. This place held their mother in ways photographs couldn't capture. Her vision, her passion, her daily life. Marie entered from the back office, carrying a tray with cookies and lemonade. "Thought we could use a snack while we talk," she said, setting it on the small table near the reading nook. The 4 of them gathered around, an impromptu family council that had become increasingly common over the past weeks. Marie, though not related by blood, had maintained her role as a stabilizing presence, while Daniel had gradually moved from visitor to central figure in the twins' lives. "So," Marie began, "are we all still in agreement about the plan for the bookstore?" The twins nodded, their expressions reflecting the careful consideration that had gone into the decision. "I still think Mom would like it," Lily said quietly, "keeping it in the family, but making it different too." The plan they had developed was both preservation and evolution. Storybook Endings would reopen not as a traditional bookstore, but as a combination bookshop, photography gallery, and community space. Daniel would display and sell his work alongside carefully curated books, while the Reading Nook would expand to host author events, photography workshops, and the book clubs. That had been a staple of Sarah's business model. "It honors both your paths," Emma had said when they first discussed the idea, her pragmatic nature finding the logical connection between Sarah's literary world and Daniel's visual one. "The contractor says the renovations can be completed by early June," Daniel reported now, "just in time for the summer tourist season. And the legal paperwork is all finalized," Marie added. "The business remains in trust for the girls, with you as operating manager and creative director." Daniel nodded, still somewhat amazed by the transformation of his life in just 4 months. From nomadic photographer with no fixed address to business owner and father, rooted in a small town he'd never planned to call home. Which brings us to the other thing we need to discuss, Marie continued, her tone gentle but direct. The living arrangements. The twins exchanged glances, their silent communication as effective as ever. Since Sarah's passing, they had continued living with Marie, while spending increasing amounts of time at Daniel's house. The question of when, or if, they would move in with him permanently had remained unspoken, but ever present. "We've been talking about it," Emma said, taking the lead as usual. "Lily and I." Daniel and Marie waited, giving the twins the space they'd learned was important for their decision-making process. "We think—" Emma hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. "We think it's time to try living with Daniel. If that's still what he wants." The simplicity of the statement belied its emotional significance. After months of careful relationship building, of learning to trust, of healing together and separately, the twins were ready to take this monumental step. Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I want that very much," he managed to say, "but only if you're both sure." "We're sure," Lily confirmed, her voice steadier than her sister's for once. "It makes sense. Our rooms at your house are already set up, and Marie needs her guest room back eventually." "My guest room is always yours when you need it," Marie assured them quickly. "This isn't about me needing space." "We know," Emma acknowledged, "but it's time for all of us." The decision hung in the air, weighty with both possibility and finality. It represented the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, not just for the twins, but for all of them. "I was thinking," Daniel said after a moment, "that we could make it official the weekend after the bookstore reopening. Give ourselves something to look forward to after all the work is done, like a homecoming party?" Lily asked, warming to the idea. Daniel smiled. "Exactly like that. Nothing elaborate, just a celebration of new beginnings." As they continued discussing logistics, which furniture to move, how to arrange schedules, whether Marie would still pick them up from school on days Daniel had business meetings, a sense of cautious optimism filled the bookstore. The path forward wasn't perfect or without complications, but it was taking shape, built on conscious choices rather than circumstances forced upon them. Later that afternoon, as spring sunshine slanted through the bookstore windows, creating pools of golden light on the hardwood floors, Daniel found Emma alone in Sarah's office. She stood before a wall of photographs, Sarah with the twins as babies, as toddlers, as young girls, her expression contemplative. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked softly, not wanting to intrude on her private moment. Emma nodded without turning, just thinking about Mom, about whether she'd be happy with all this. Daniel moved to stand beside her, studying the photographic timeline of the life Sarah had built without him. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think she would be," Emma said after a thoughtful pause. "Not at first, maybe. When you first showed up, I was so angry. I kept thinking that if you had been here all along, maybe Mum wouldn't have gotten sick, that maybe she wouldn't have had to work so hard. I've had the same thoughts," Daniel admitted. "The what-ifs can be torturous." "But then I read her letter," Emma continued, "and I realized something important." "What was that?" "That Mom made choices too. She chose to keep us a secret from you. She chose to build our life here, her way." Emma turned to face him. "So I can be sad about what we all missed, but I can't be angry at just you anymore." It wasn't fair. The maturity in her assessment struck Daniel profoundly. At 9 years old, Emma had reached an understanding that many adults struggled with, that relationships and their endings rarely had villains, just people making imperfect choices with the information and emotions they had at the time. "Your mother wrote something similar in her letter to me," Daniel shared. "She said she'd spent years justifying her decision to keep you both from me, convincing herself it was for the best. But in the end, she wasn't sure anymore. She just knew she couldn't change the past, only try to make a better future for you both. Emma nodded, absorbing this. That's what we're doing now, isn't it? Making a better future. We're certainly trying, Daniel agreed. All of us together. From the main part of the store came Lily's voice, excitedly showing Marie where she thought Daniel's panoramic landscapes should be displayed. The energy in her tone spoke of looking forward rather than back, of building rather than mourning. Want to join them? Daniel asked. I think your sister has decided I need to rearrange my entire exhibition plan. Emma smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes in a way Daniel had rarely seen. In a minute, I want to take a picture first. She pulled out the small camera Daniel had given her, an upgrade from the simple point-and-shoot they'd started with, and carefully framed a shot of Sarah's wall of family photographs, capturing the visual history that would inform, but not dictate their future. Perfect, she said, reviewing the image on the display. For the new gallery wall, so Mom is still part of the store. Together, they rejoined Lily and Marie, the four of them continuing their plans for transforming storybook endings into something that honored Sarah's legacy while embracing new possibilities. The grand reopening of storybook endings, books, and images took place on a perfect June Saturday, coinciding with Oak Ridge's annual summer festival. The renovated space retained the warmth and character Sarah had cultivated while incorporating sleek display areas for Daniel's photography and an expanded community area with comfortable seating. The event drew not only local residents curious about the bookstore's transformation, but also literary and photography enthusiasts from neighboring towns. Daniel's reputation had brought interest from regional art critics, while Sarah's loyal customer base returned to see how her vision had evolved. As the twins moved through the crowd, offering refreshments and answering questions about the books and photographs, Daniel watched with a pride that still surprised him in its intensity. In just months, they had become a family, unconventional and still healing, but unmistakably connected. Sarah would be amazed, Marie said, appearing beside him with 2 glasses of champagne. And proud. Daniel accepted the glass with a grateful nod. Of the store or the girls? Both, but mostly the girls. They've come so far since January. Indeed, the transformation was remarkable. The shell-shocked children at the funeral had gradually given way to these resilient young people who had found ways to carry their grief while still moving forward. They still had moments of overwhelming sadness, still had nights when one or both would crawl into Daniel's bed seeking comfort from nightmares, still had days when the absence of their mother felt unbearable. But alongside the loss, they had built something new, a relationship with their father, an expanded definition of family, a future that incorporated their past without being limited by it. As evening approached and the crowd thinned, Daniel gathered the twins and Marie near the central display, where his photographs surrounded a glass case containing one of Sarah's literature anthologies, open to a poem she had annotated extensively. I think it's time, he said quietly, reaching into his pocket. The twins looked at him expectantly, aware that he'd been planning something special for the reopening. Daniel removed 2 small velvet boxes, handing one to each twin. These are from me to commemorate today and every day moving forward. Emma and Lily opened the boxes simultaneously, revealing identical silver pendants shaped like vintage camera apertures. Within each aperture was an opal, Emma's with hints of blue, Lily's with touches of pink, their birthstone. Turn them over, Daniel encouraged. On the back of each pendant was engraved a simple message. Through your eyes. Love, Dad. It was the first time he had signed anything as Dad rather than Daniel, a boundary he had been careful not to cross until he felt they were ready. Lily threw her arms around him immediately, while Emma studied the pendant with characteristic thoughtfulness before looking up with glistening eyes. Thank you, she said simply, the words carrying the weight of acceptance. As Daniel helped each twin with the clasp of their necklaces, he noticed something remarkable. Against all odds, they had created a new center for their lives, not replacing what was lost, but building something meaningful from the fragments that remained. Later that night, after the official moving-in celebration at the house on Sycamore Street, after pizza and ice cream and setting up the last of their belongings in rooms that were finally, truly theirs, Daniel tucked the exhausted twins into their beds. As he turned to leave Emma's room, her voice stopped him at the door. "Daniel?" she called softly. He turned back. "Yes?" Emma touched the pendant at her throat, her expression serious in the dim glow of her nightlight. "I think I'm ready to call you Dad now, if that's okay." The simple statement, delivered with Emma's characteristic directness, nearly undid him. "That would be more than okay," he managed to reply. "Good," she nodded, settling deeper under her covers. "I just wanted you to know." Daniel closed her door softly, pausing in the hallway to collect himself. Through the window at the end of the corridor, he could see the night sky above Oak Ridge, stars brilliant against the darkness. Somewhere in that vastness, he liked to think Sarah could see what they had built together, this family formed through loss and discovery, through grief and forgiveness, through the simple, extraordinary miracle of finding one another when it seemed too late. It wasn't the story any of them had expected. But as Daniel had learned through countless photographs captured around the world, the most powerful images often emerged from unexpected moments. Beauty found not despite brokenness, but within it. The journey ahead would have its challenges. There would be school events where Sarah's absence felt unbearable, birthdays tinged with sadness, milestones she should have witnessed. There would be disagreements about parenting, adjustments as they all learned to live together, moments when grief resurfaced without warning. But there would also be new memories created, new traditions established, new connections strengthened day by day. Daniel's photographs would document this evolution, not just professionally for the gallery, but personally in family albums that would someday show the twins how they had grown, not just in height, but in healing, not just in age, but in understandings. He headed downstairs to finish cleaning up from their celebration. Daniel paused at the wall where they had hung a special photograph. The twins at Sarah's funeral, their small hands clasped tightly together as they faced an uncertain future. Beside it hung a more recent image, Emma and Lily on the porch of their new home, Daniel slightly blurred in the background as he moved toward them, all three caught in a moment of genuine laughter, past and present, side by side. Loss and discovery held in balance. The story of three people who found each other when they needed it most, creating a family from fragments that had seemed beyond repair. It wasn't an ending. It was, in every sense, just the beginning. Up next, you've got two more standout stories, right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.